The Galactic Medical Exchange Center was huge. Its white walls stretched up into the sky, and its many windows sparkled in the light of 3 suns. Dr. Hei-Yun Park walked through its busy halls, passing aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some had tentacles, others had scales, and a few even floated in the air. But Hei-Yun didn't stare anymore. After 2 years working here, she was used to it all. Hei-Yun checked her tablet as she walked. She was a human biomedical engineer, and she loved her job. Today was supposed to be quiet, just some routine work in her lab. But then the urgent message had come in. Dr. Park, your presence is required in Ward 7B, urgent consultation needed. The message was from Dr. Du Young, one of the most respected alien doctors in the facility. Hei-Yun had worked with him before. He looked like a tall, blue-skinned human, except his skin sparkled like it was made of tiny diamonds. He was from a species that humans called the crystallines, though that wasn't their real name. Their real name was impossible for human tongues to say. When Hei-Yun reached Ward 7B, she found Dr. Du Young waiting outside. His usually calm face showed worry. Next to him stood another human doctor, Ji-Ho Kim, Hei-Yun's regular research partner. Thank you for coming so quickly, Dr. Park, Du Young said. His voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. We have a challenging case. Hei-Yun nodded. Tell me about it. Du Young led them into the ward. In the middle of the room, on a special floating bed, lay a small crystalline child. The child was about the size of a human 6-year-old, with skin that looked like pale blue quartz. Unlike Dr. Du Young's healthy sparkle, the child's crystalline body seemed dull and irregular. This is Tae-Ri, Du Young said softly. The child's human caretaker had given them this name, as crystalline names were too complex for most species to pronounce. Tae-Ri has a rare condition that affects their crystalline skeletal structure. They cannot walk, or even stand. Hei-Yun moved closer to the bed. The child looked at her with eyes that seemed to be made of sapphires. Despite their alien appearance, Hei-Yun could see the sadness in those eyes. We have tried everything, Du Young continued. 17 different star systems, hundreds of doctors, the finest medical minds in the galaxy. He paused, his crystalline form dimming slightly, a sign of deep sadness in his species. Nothing has worked. Ji-Ho spoke up, his voice gentle. What exactly happens when Tae-Ri tries to move? Du Young waved his hand, and a holographic display appeared above the bed. It showed the inside of Tae-Ri's body, a beautiful but flawed crystal structure. In a healthy crystalline, Du Young explained, our crystal matrix grows in perfect alignment. It allows us to move, to bend, to walk. But Tae-Ri's matrix, he pointed to several spots where the crystal structure was twisted and irregular. The signals cannot flow properly. The matrix cannot support movement. Hei-Yun studied the hologram carefully. She had seen many strange medical cases in her time here, but this was different. Most alien doctors saw humans as primitives. Their technology was considered basic compared to the advanced healing methods of other species. But sometimes, being primitive meant thinking differently. Have you tried human medical solutions? She asked. Du Young's crystal skin flickered, the equivalent of a surprised blink. Human solutions, but your technology is. He stopped himself, trying to be polite. Simple? Hei-Yun smiled. Sometimes simple is good. Sometimes simple works when complex fails. She turned to look at Tae-Ri again. The child was watching them all with hopeful eyes. Hei-Yun remembered something from her studies back on Earth, about how humans had helped their own disabled children walk again, long before they had advanced technology. Can you send me all of Tae-Ri's medical data? She asked Du Young. And I mean all of it. Every scan, every test, every failed treatment. I want to see everything. Du Young nodded. Within seconds, Hei-Yun's tablet was filled with medical files. There were thousands of them, representing years of failed attempts to help this child. I'll need time to study these, Hei-Yun said. She looked at Jai-ho, who nodded. He would help her. Then she turned to Tairi and smiled. "Don't worry. We're going to try something different." Tairi's crystal body brightened slightly, a crystalline smile. It was small, but it was there. As Ha-Yun and Jai-ho left the ward, Do-young followed them. "Dr. Park," he called, "I must warn you. Many doctors have tried to help Tairi. Many have failed. The child's hopes have been raised and dashed too many times. If you take this case—" "I understand," Ha-Yun said. "But tell me something, doctor. Have any of those other doctors been human?" Do-young's crystal skin flickered again. "No," he admitted. "You would be the first." "Then maybe it's time for a human solution." Ha-Yun patted her tablet. "Sometimes the old ways are the best ways, and we humans have been helping people walk again for a very long time." Back in their lab, Ha-Yun and Jai-ho began their work. They had a long night ahead of them, reading through thousands of alien medical files. But as Ha-Yun looked at the first file, she felt excited. This was why she had come to work at the Galactic Medical Exchange Center, to solve problems that seemed impossible. On her tablet, she opened a new file and typed at the top, "Project: Walking Stars, Human Solution for Crystalline Mobility." Outside their lab window, the three suns were setting, painting the sky in beautiful colors. Somewhere in the medical center, a young crystalline child named Tairi was waiting, hoping that maybe, just maybe, these strange human doctors could do what no one else had done before. Ha-Yun smiled as she began to read. Sometimes being primitive had its advantages. Sometimes the simple solution was the best solution. And sometimes it took a human to see it. Ha-Yun's eyes were tired. She had been reading medical files for 12 hours straight. Empty coffee cups littered her desk, and Jai-ho was asleep on the small couch in their lab. The three suns had set and risen again, but she barely noticed. "This is interesting," she muttered, sitting up straighter. On her screen was a report about how crystalline bodies moved. Unlike human bones and muscles, crystallines used something called crystal lattice pathways. These pathways carried signals through their bodies, like human nerves but made of living crystal. Ha-Yun looked at another screen where a video played. It showed Tairi trying to stand. The child's crystal body structure would start to align but then collapse, like a building with a broken foundation. She played the video again, slower this time. "Jai-ho," she called out. "Wake up. I think I found something." Jai-ho stirred on the couch, rubbing his eyes. "What time is it?" "Time to think differently," Ha-Yun said. She pointed to her screen. "Look at this. Everyone's been trying to fix Tairi's crystal structure. But what if we don't need to fix it? What if we just need to support it?" Jai-ho walked over, still yawning. "What do you mean?" "Remember the old exoskeletons we used to help people walk on Earth, before we had fancy genetic treatments and nerve repairs?" Ha-Yun pulled up some old Earth medical files. "Look at this." The screen showed pictures of human medical history. There were images of metal braces, walking frames, and finally, early exoskeletons that helped paralyzed people walk. "But those were made for human bodies," Jai-ho said. "Crystalline biology is completely different." "The biology is different, yes," Ha-Yun agreed. "But the problem is the same. Tairi can't walk because their crystal structure can't support them. So let's support it from the outside." She started drawing on her tablet. Her simple sketches showed a modified exoskeleton, but with special additions. "We can use the gravity compensators from the space station medical bay. Add them here and here." She pointed to her drawing. "They'll help take the weight off Tairi's crystal structure." Jai-ho leaned closer, getting excited now. "But how do we connect it? Crystalline bodies don't have muscles to attach to." "That's the clever part." Ha-Yun pulled up another file. "Look what I found in Tairi's latest scans. Their crystal lattice still tries to carry signals. It just can't complete the pathways. But what if we could help those signals along?" Jai-ho's eyes widened. "You want to interface with their crystal matrix?" The alien doctors said that's impossible. Their technology is way more advanced than ours. And they couldn't do it. Their technology is more advanced. Hei-yun agreed. But sometimes being less advanced makes you think of simple solutions. She pulled up an old Earth physics textbook on her tablet. Remember this from school. Piezoelectric crystals. Of course, Jiho said. Crystals that create electricity when pressed or move when electricity is applied. He stopped, understanding spreading across his face. You think we could use that principle with Tilly's crystal structure? Why not? Hei-yun asked. Crystallines already use something similar in their bodies. We just need to help it along. She started modifying her design. Look, if we put small piezoelectric sensors here and here, her pen moved quickly across the tablet. We could pick up the signals Tairi's body is trying to send and help carry them through. Jiho sat down, thinking hard. It's so simple, he said finally. All this time, the alien doctors were trying to fix the crystal structure itself. But we're just going to help it do what it's already trying to do. Hei-yun nodded. Sometimes the best solution isn't fixing something. Sometimes it's just helping it work better. They spent the next few hours refining the design. Hei-yun added more details while Jiho ran simulations on their computer. Outside their lab, the medical center was waking up. Doctors of various species walked past their window, some floating, some crawling, some walking on many legs. Finally, Hei-yun sat back. I think it's ready, she said. We should show Dr. Du-young. They found the crystalline doctor in his office. His crystal skin was glowing softly as he read through medical reports. When Hei-yun and Jiho entered, he looked up. Dr. Park, Dr. Kim, he said. You look tired. Have you been working all night? We have a solution, Hei-yun said simply. She placed her tablet on his desk and showed him their design. Du-young studied it carefully. His crystal skin flickered rapidly, a sign of strong emotion in his species. This is surprising, he said finally. You want to use an exoskeleton. Such simple technology. Sometimes simple is best, Hei-yun said. Look at the interface design. We're not trying to fix Tairi's crystal structure. We're just helping it do its job better. Du-young was quiet for a long time. He looked at their design again and again. The piezoelectric interface, he said finally. It's so obvious now that I see it. All our advanced technology, and we never thought of something so simple. Will you let us try? Jiho asked. Du-young's crystal skin brightened. Yes, he said. Yes, I think we must try. But, he looked at them seriously. Building this will not be easy. You'll need special materials. Some of them don't exist yet. Hei-yun smiled. Then we'll make them. Humans are good at that too. As they left Du-young's office, Jiho looked at Hei-yun. You know what this means, right? If this works. If this works, Hei-yun finished, we'll change how the galaxy thinks about human medicine. She looked at her tablet, where their design glowed on the screen. But first, we need to help one child walk. They headed back to their lab. There was much work to do. They needed to create new materials, run more tests, build prototypes. But Hei-yun felt hopeful. Sometimes the best solutions were the simple ones. Sometimes being primitive meant seeing things that others missed. And sometimes it took human thinking to solve an alien problem. In Ward 7B, Tairi was waiting. The young crystalline didn't know it yet, but human ingenuity was about to change their life forever. All because two human doctors decided to think differently, to try something simple when complex solutions had failed. Hei-yun looked at her design one more time. Tomorrow, they would begin building it. Tomorrow, they would start turning this dream into reality. Tomorrow, they would prove that human technology, no matter how simple it seemed, could still amaze the galaxy. But for now, she needed sleep. She had been awake for over 24 hours. As she headed home, the three suns high in the sky, she smiled. Sometimes the best ideas came from the simplest thoughts, and sometimes being human was all the advantage you needed. 3 weeks had passed since Ian and Ji-ho showed their design to Dr. Du-young. Their lab had changed a lot in that time. New machines filled the room, and pieces of their prototype lay on every surface. The walls were covered with diagrams and test results. Ha-Eun stood at her workbench, carefully adjusting a small crystal sensor. Under her microscope, she could see the tiny patterns they had carved into its surface. These patterns would help it connect with Toiri's crystal structure. Next to her, Ji-ho was programming the control unit that would help guide the signals through their device. "How's the interface coming along?" Ji-ho asked, looking up from his computer. Hae-yeon moved back from the microscope. "I think we finally got it right. Look at this." She pressed a small button, sending a tiny electrical signal through the crystal sensor. Under the microscope, the crystal's patterns lit up with a soft blue glow. "Perfect," Ji-ho said, smiling, "just like a crystalline's natural signal paths." Their progress had not gone unnoticed. Every day, more alien doctors came to watch them work. Some came to study their primitive methods. Others came to shake their heads at the humans' strange ideas. But all of them were curious. Today was no different. As Hae-yeon and Ji-ho worked, Dr. Du-young entered their lab with 5 other alien doctors. Some floated in the air, others walked on many legs, and one looked like a cloud of sparkling dust. "Dr. Park, Dr. Kim," Du-young said, "these are members of the Galactic Medical Council. They've come to evaluate your progress." Hae-yeon understood what that meant. The council didn't believe their simple solution would work. They had come to see the humans fail. One of the floating doctors spoke. Their voice sounded like bubbles in water. "We have reviewed your design. It is interesting. But surely you realize that connecting to a crystalline's neural matrix requires technology far beyond human capabilities. Does it?" Hae-yeon asked. She picked up one of their completed sensors. "Would you like to see how our primitive solution works?" The alien doctors gathered around her workbench. Hae-yeon placed the sensor under a special display screen that showed energy patterns. Then she activated it. Beautiful patterns of light spread across the screen. They looked exactly like the signal patterns in a healthy crystalline's body. The alien doctors leaned closer, their various forms showing signs of surprise. "Impossible," the cloud-like doctor whispered. "How did you achieve this with such basic technology?" Ji-ho stepped forward. "We studied how crystalline bodies work naturally. Then we thought about old Earth science, something we learned in school about piezoelectric crystals, simple crystals that respond to electricity." He pointed to their sensor. "We didn't try to copy advanced alien technology. We just helped nature do what it already knows how to do." The alien doctors spoke among themselves in their various languages. Hae-yeon could see they were shocked. Their advanced minds couldn't believe that humans had solved this problem with such simple science. Dr. Du-young's crystal skin was glowing brightly. "This is remarkable," he said. "But will it work with a real crystalline body?" "We're ready to test it," Hae-yeon said. She walked to a large case on her workbench and opened it carefully. Inside lay their completed exoskeleton. It was beautiful in its simplicity. Thin metal frames would support Toiri's crystal body. Tiny sensors, like the one they had just tested, were placed at key points. The whole thing looked delicate but strong, like a spider's web made of silver. "We'd like to try it tomorrow," Hae-yeon said. "If the council approves." The alien doctors talked among themselves again. Finally, the floating doctor spoke. "We will allow this test, but we must warn you. If you give the child false hope." "We understand," Ji-ho said firmly, "but we believe in our solution. Sometimes the simplest answer is the right answer." After the doctors left, Hae-yeon and Ji-ho stayed late in their lab. They checked every part of their device again and again. Everything had to be perfect for tomorrow. "Do you really think it will work?" Ji-ho asked quietly. He-yun looked at their creation. It seemed so simple compared to the advanced medical technology the aliens used. But sometimes simple was good. Sometimes simple was exactly what you needed. Yes, she said. I think it will work. Because we didn't try to force a solution. We just helped nature do its job. That night, as He-yun walked home under the 3 moons, she thought about Tyree. The child had visited their lab many times over the past weeks, watching them work with hopeful eyes. Tomorrow, those eyes would either fill with joy or disappointment. But He-yun wasn't worried. She believed in their solution. She believed in human ingenuity. Most of all, she believed that sometimes the best way to solve a problem was to look at it with fresh eyes. In her apartment, she looked out her window at the gleaming medical center. Somewhere in there, their exoskeleton waited. Tomorrow it would either change a child's life or become another failed attempt in a long line of failures. But He-yun smiled. She knew something the alien doctors didn't. She knew that humans had been helping people walk again for hundreds of years. They had started with simple wooden crutches and worked their way up to modern exoskeletons. Every step of the way, they had learned and improved. Now they would take that knowledge, that history of helping people move again, and use it to help an alien child walk. They would show the galaxy that sometimes the old ways, the simple ways, were the best ways. Tomorrow would be a big day. Tomorrow would show whether human innovation could succeed where advanced alien technology had failed. Tomorrow would prove that being primitive wasn't always a bad thing. He-yun went to sleep that night dreaming of crystal patterns and piezoelectric sensors. In her dreams, she saw Tyree walking among the stars, their crystal body glowing with joy. Tomorrow would tell if those dreams could come true. The testing room was packed. Doctors from every corner of the galaxy had come to watch. Some stood on the floor, others floated near the ceiling, and a few had to wait outside because their bodies were too big to fit through the door. The room buzzed with different languages as they all talked about the same thing. Would the humans' simple solution really work? He-yun tried to stay calm as she and Jiho prepared their equipment. The exoskeleton lay ready on a special table, its silver frame gleaming under the bright lights. They had tested it hundreds of times in the lab, but this was different. This was real. Dr. Du-young entered the room with Tyree. The child's crystal body sparkled with excitement, but He-yun could see the fear too. How many times had Tyree hoped for a cure, only to be disappointed? "Are you ready?" He-yun asked Tyree softly. The child's crystal body pulsed with a gentle light. Yes. He-yun smiled and began to explain what would happen. "First, we'll put the exoskeleton on you. It might feel a little strange at first, but it shouldn't hurt. The sensors will connect with your crystal structure, like gentle hands helping you stand. If anything feels wrong or uncomfortable, just let us know, and we'll stop right away." Jiho moved forward with the first piece of the exoskeleton. Together, they carefully fitted it around Tyree's crystal body. The metal frame was light but strong, wrapping around the child's form like a delicate silver skeleton. "Now comes the important part," He-yun said. She held up one of their special sensors. "These will help your body's signals move properly. You might feel a tiny tingling when we turn them on." One by one, they placed the sensors at key points on Tyree's body. Each sensor glowed softly as it connected with the child's crystal structure. The alien doctors watched in silence, their various forms showing signs of intense interest. Finally, everything was ready. He-yun looked at Jiho, who nodded. It was time. "Okay, Tyree," He-yun said. "We're going to activate the system now. Remember, we can stop any time you want." She pressed a button on their control panel. The exoskeleton hummed quietly to life. The sensors began to glow brighter, their light pulsing in rhythm with Tyree's natural crystal patterns. A gasp went through the room. The alien doctors could see what was happening. The simple human device was working perfectly with Tyree's complex crystal biology. It was doing something their advanced technology had never managed to do. "How do you feel?" Heyun asked. Tairi's crystal body brightened. The child moved slightly, testing the exoskeleton. Then, slowly, carefully, Tairi began to sit up. The room went completely silent. Everyone watched as Tairi moved to the edge of the bed. The child's crystal legs, supported by the silver frame, dangled over the side. "Would you like to try standing?" Heyun asked. Tairi's whole body glowed with excitement. Carefully, with Heyun and Jiho ready to help, the child slid off the bed. The exoskeleton moved smoothly, supporting Tairi's weight just as they had designed it to do. And then it happened. Tairi was standing. The child's crystal body blazed with joy, sending rainbow patterns dancing across the walls. The alien doctors began to murmur in amazement. Dr. Du Young's crystal skin was glowing so brightly he looked like a star. But Heyun and Jiho weren't done yet. "Would you like to try taking a step?" Heyun asked. Tairi looked down at their feet, then up at Heyun. The child's crystal body pulsed with determination. Slowly, carefully, Tairi lifted one foot. The exoskeleton moved perfectly, supporting the child's weight as they took their first step. Then another, and another. Tairi was walking. The room erupted in cheers and congratulations in 100 different languages. Some of the floating doctors spun in circles of joy. The cloud-like doctor sparkled so much they looked like a firework. But Heyun wasn't watching them. She was watching Tairi, who was walking slowly around the room, each step more confident than the last. The child's crystal body was glowing with pure happiness, creating beautiful patterns of light that danced across the walls and ceiling. Dr. Du Young approached them, his crystal skin still blazing with emotion. "You did it," he said. "With such simple technology, you did what our most advanced medical science could not do." "Sometimes simple is better," Jiho said. "Sometimes you don't need to fix something completely. You just need to help it work better." As they talked, Tairi continued to practice walking. The child was getting better every minute, learning how to work with the exoskeleton. It wasn't perfect. Tairi would never move exactly like other crystallines. But they were walking, moving, living in a way they never could before. The members of the Galactic Medical Council gathered around Heyun and Jiho. The floating doctor spoke first. "We must admit, we were wrong about human medical technology. You have shown us that advanced does not always mean better. Your solution is elegant in its simplicity," the cloud-like doctor added. "We would like to learn more about this piezoelectric interface you created." Heyun smiled. "We'd be happy to share our knowledge. After all, that's why this place exists, to share medical ideas from all species." Suddenly, everyone went quiet. Tairi was walking toward them, holding something. It was a crystal flower, something the child had grown but had never been able to give to anyone before because they couldn't walk to do it. The child held out the flower to Heyun and Jiho. It was beautiful, its crystal petals catching the light and breaking it into rainbow colors. Heyun knelt down to accept the gift. "Thank you," she said softly. Tairi's body pulsed with patterns that Dr. Du Young translated. "No, thank you, for helping me walk among the stars." Later that day, as Heyun and Jiho watched Tairi practice walking with their family, they knew they had done more than just help one child walk. They had shown the galaxy that human ingenuity, no matter how simple it seemed, could still amaze and inspire. The three suns were setting outside, painting the sky in beautiful colors. In the testing room, a young crystalline child walked back and forth, their crystal body glowing with joy, their steps supported by a simple human device that had succeeded where advanced alien technology had failed. Sometimes the simplest solutions were the best solutions. Sometimes being primitive meant seeing things in a new way. And sometimes it took human thinking to solve an alien problem. As Heyun looked at the crystal flower on her desk, she smiled. They had done more than create a medical breakthrough. They had given hope to a child. They had shown the galaxy that humans, with all their primitive technology, could still do amazing things. And somewhere in the medical center, a young crystalline child was walking among the stars, their crystal body glowing with joy, their steps supported by human ingenuity and care. The breakthrough would change galactic medicine forever. But for He Yun and Jiho, the real success was much simpler. They had helped someone walk again, just as humans had been doing for hundreds of years, with everything from wooden crutches to crystal interfacing exoskeletons. Sometimes the old ways were the best ways. Sometimes simple was better than complex. And sometimes being human was all the advantage you needed.